everyone, Kate here for a long overdue TBR stack wrap up. This is only the second wrap up, and I was trying to get through these books in 2020. I kind of knew this was going to happen going in, but alas, here I am for only the second wrap up. This is just going to turn into a long-term project, but I still like the project because I am reading books off my shelf. I actually recorded this video a couple months back and lost the footage. So then I was like, oh, I have to film it all over again. So it took me a while to work up the motivation to film it again. But I have 5 to tell you about. And the first is Mrs. Arris Goes to New York by Paul Gallico. This is the second in the Mrs. Arris series. And in this one, there is a couple that she is a cleaning lady for. They are New Yorkers and they are moving back to New York. And they haven't hired any, housekeeping staff for their, fancy apartment they're moving back to in New York. And so they ask Mrs. Harris, will you please go along with us and work with us, for the first month or so. And so while we get adjusted. And she is game because she loves the idea of going to New York, and combining that with the fact that there is a little boy who's been abandoned by his mother and his father, but Mrs. Arris is pretty sure his father doesn't even know he exists. She knows the father is an American and that he left a long time ago, and she's pretty sure he doesn't even know the little boy exists. So he is staying with neighbors in Mrs. Arris's apartment that she can tell are really mistreating him. So she sneaks this little boy off to America with her, and they try to figure out who his father is. And what's really fun is that her friend, who is another char lady, gets to go with her and to be the cook to this couple while Mrs. Arris is the cleaner. It's a delightful little modern classic, just a little gem of a book. It didn't take me very long at all to read it. I think I didn't like it quite as much as Mrs. Arris Goes to Paris, but that's because I love that one so much. So I definitely recommend this still. I'm really, really pleased that I read it. Then Showboat by Edna Ferber. Did not read Showboat. Just not in the mood for it. I started it, and within the first chapter I could tell I was not in the mood for it. I'm like, I'm not going to force it. I don't want this to be like pulling teeth. I'm not going to force it. So it is what it is. Then Joy in the Morning by Betty Smith, who is also the author of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. I loved this book, and I really think it's down to the audiobook that I listened to. So the leading lady in the book, this was like June that I read this, so of course her name is not coming to me. Annie, that's what it is. It just came to me. Is part Irish, and so the narrator just did a really beautiful kind of like mild Irish accent, like clear that she had lived in America for a long time but had parents that were Irish. But it's about her first year of life first year of marriage with her husband. So they're living as newlyweds. They've moved across the country from New York to the Midwest. So I guess halfway across the country, but to the Midwest where he is going to law school. And so it's actually about the first several years of marriage while he's at law school and when they're living on a really tight budget, and just kind of the joys and sorrows that you have when you're starting a new life with someone. And it's just a really charming book. And what made me love it so much was Annie. She has this like feisty, snappy personality, and she's just so funny. The husband, Carl, I will say, he did really annoy me in parts. He's very patronizing and like, aren't you so lucky? Like, I'm the grown up in this relationship. And I really thought a lot of the time he didn't act like that. So if it weren't for Annie, I think I actually wouldn't have loved this book, but she just made the book for me and was so interesting. And I loved seeing her growing interest in writing and just love of literature. And then The Song of the Lark by Willa Cather. So this was kind of a sandwich reading experience for me, whereas the first part of the book did not interest me that much. The first like fifth of the book, okay, didn't interest me much. But then like something happened in the plot and I was very engaged. So then for about 3/5 of the book, I was loving it. It was such beautiful writing, just unbelievably beautiful writing. And you know how I love a good nature description. There was that in there, but just really getting to know our main character, and yeah, just had some really stunningly beautiful passages. But then combining that with the last fifth where I just kind of petered off in interest. I think what I struggled with is I felt like you were really in the main character's head for the vast majority of the book. And then at the end, you don't get to know kind of what she thought about how her life had turned out. You weren't really in her head. So it felt a little bit disjointed at the end. But overall, I still really enjoyed it. It felt really lovely to be back with Willa Cather's writing. And I definitely am excited for the next in the TBR stack to continue reading those. And then lastly, and one that I'm really scared to talk about on BookTube about not liking it, and that is Peace Like a River. I wanted to love this. I did. And this sounds so like picky, but it was too quiet. It was so quiet. So then I thought, well, maybe an audiobook would help things pick up, and it didn't. It's just this certain style of book. And I know, like Katie from Life Between Words, I tried to read Cold Mountain with her, and the writing was so beautiful, but it was so slow, like molasses. And this felt the same way. And Katie loves Peace Like a River also. So I think it's this certain style of book, like Marilyn Robinson's Gilead books. I think if you really like that style, you're going to love all those books. But to me, it's just slightly too quiet. It's hard to explain. So I wanted to love it. I really did. But alas, oh well, you can't love them all. So that's my very late TBR stack, and obviously this project is going into 2021, but the next books that I have I'm very excited about. Lucia in London and Map in Lucia, The Silver Well by Kate Forsyth, Island Magic by Elizabeth Goudge, which I've read, but I'll give my reaction in the next video. A Lost Lady by Willa Cather, One of Ours, also by Willa Cather, Diary of a Provincial Lady, which is a really light and airy modern classic, and Fräulein Schmidt and Mr. Anstruther. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing about these books, and I will be back for another video soon. Bye.